and to discuss the latest situation with a perspective from Ukraine. I'm joined live from Kyiv by Serhiy Shapovalov. Serhiy, thank you so much for joining us here today on Anews. Could you please give us your perspective of this current situation from inside Ukraine?
Well, as you know, beginning from yesterday, Russia started the escalation on the Donbass. Russia-backed militants started to shoot, to fire on Ukrainian positions, but not only on not only on the Ukrainians' military position, but also they fire on civilian objects in peaceful cities. We assume that they try to provoke Ukrainian army to fire in response, and after that they are going to create a picture of Ukrainian military operation against so-called republics, so that it can create a context for Russia to invade. Well, as we know, Russian president considers the recognition of the independence of so-called republics, and this all may lead to even more escalation in Donbass. And even if military escalation goes even higher, we expect it to be located in Donbass, but we do not expect Russian military attack on Kyiv or other major cities of Ukraine. So it will be a military operation, but still it will be a local, mainly local operation.
Over the last week, we've been watching intensely the unfolding discussions and statements from both Vladimir Putin, from the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, as well as the Americans and the British and every other foreign minister around the world has thrown in their perspective on what's happening. From Ukraine as well, we've had Vladimir Zelensky saying, hey, let's calm down, things aren't so bad. Well, what is the reality, do you think? The tensions particularly between the US and Russian sides are to be expected. Zelensky was calling for calm a few days ago and saying, let's just take it easy. Well, what do you think the best way forward on the diplomatic arena is at this stage?
Well, of course, we should not take it easy in the sense that we should remain relaxed and do not think about possible Russian aggression. We suffer from Russian aggression for 8 years. And of course, we understand that Putin may have gone completely insane, and he may imagine himself a Russian monarch who should restore a Russian empire and attack Ukraine. But what about what is going to be, how developments will go in the nearest future? As we have seen, Western media somewhat exaggerate the situation around Ukraine. They predicted that Russian aggression will take place on February 16. As we know, it didn't happen.
In fact, there was a US president that said that, I think.
Yeah, and so even some Ukrainian politicians accused President Biden and Western media of exaggerating the situation. But we believe that this was done intentionally because it is some kind of tactics of countering Russian aggression. Because anytime Russian plans are publicly disclosed, we can expect that the aggression will not take place when the plans for aggression are disclosed. And that is why I think Western intelligence units, when they disclosed this or that way of aggression that is proposed to Putin, they declare it publicly, and even President Biden may state about it publicly, so that it is made for everyone to be ready to counter this possible aggression. And we think that something like hybrid warfare that Russia deploys against Ukraine, now we see that United States deploy some kind of hybrid warfare against Russia. They try to deter Russian aggression with these hybrid measures. The situation remains, the tension remains high, and we know that Putin considers, as I said, considers recognizing the independence of these so-called republics. So mainly it depends upon Putin, what he decides to do. Of course, Ukraine and European countries and the United States are ready for a diplomatic solution, but it is Russia who is seen to systematically violate any promises they have. For example, Russia accuses Ukraine for not implementing Minsk agreements, and they try to push Ukraine and persuade Western countries to push Ukraine to implement these agreements. But what is actually written in Minsk agreements? The Article 1 of Minsk agreements says that the full-scale ceasefire regime should be implemented before any political concessions are made from Ukraine to Russia. Russia itself doesn't follow the Article 1 of Minsk agreements, the ceasefire. Our armed forces, Ukrainian armed forces, remain mostly silent when we see this shooting. We try to not to answer when it is possible, just to show that we are devoted to the implementation of Minsk agreements. So basically, it means basically the whole situation depends upon Putin and future negotiations between Western leaders and the United States.
In fact, to pick up from a statement Vladimir Putin made just a little while ago, he's saying that there's a deterioration of the situation in Donbass with mass and systematic violation of human rights against the Russian-speaking population in Ukraine. Is this just another piece of fuel that he's adding to the fire to justify his position?
Well, it's not completely true, because you need to understand that Russian government is not really worried about the fate of Russian-speaking people. They've killed so many Russian-speaking people in Donbass that it is not Russia who should say anything about the rights of Russian-speaking people. They just use these formal reasons of protecting Russian-speaking people. They just use them to justify their aggression. So their main goal is to return Ukraine to under Russian political control. After 2014, Ukraine chose its way to Europe. Its way to integrate in European Union and NATO. Of course, Russia is not satisfied with it, and that is why Russia started war against Ukraine, so that Ukraine can never enter so-called Western world.
Right. And looking from the other perspective, from the United States, just and from other countries around the world, meeting right now in Munich at the security conference. I believe it's the first time that Russia hasn't attended that conference for a while. Just a little earlier, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken was talking about principles that must be upheld, that borders shouldn't be put under pressure by force, that that no country should be able to subjugate their neighbours in any way. Is this situation just about Ukraine, or is it about establishing the very real international principles that we've been living by since the Second World War?
Well, Russia is main factor of instability in this so-called post-Soviet space. We know that it's Russia who started war against Moldova, against Georgia in 2008, against Ukraine. And these words about not forcing any country, not forcing neighboring countries to do something with use of military force. Of course, it's about Russia. And Russia not attending such meetings, it is another demonstration of Russian style of foreign policy. They prove one more time that they are like terrorist country and they understand only the language of force. They cannot invade any country. They make decisions about invading any country not based on international law or something else, but based only on the force. Whether they think they are stronger than the country they are going to invade, or the weaker. If they see that they are stronger, so they think that they can use this right to force someone with military force. So in fact, as we know, there is the so-called realist theory in international relations, and it states that on the international arena, countries try to implement their national interests in the ways that they see to be appropriate. And Russia is a perfect example. If they see that using military force is appropriate for implementing their national interest, then they use it.
I think you make that's a very good point. And in fact, this particular situation, it's oversimplistic just to see it as a threatened invasion of Ukraine. There are also domestic reasons that Putin would be wanting to put pressure on at this stage. Do you see that you probably understand Putin better than many of us living further away from the region? Putin is a man who likes to appear strong and doesn't I'm sure want to be seen to be stepping down. Is there an off-ramp for him here, or is the West putting too much pressure on him to give him a way to bow out gracefully?
Well, I think that he isn't worried so much about his image internally. As we know, Russian political regime is authoritarian in its nature. So he doesn't fear not to be re-elected, or he isn't worried about his internal political popularity. It is only about his feeling of being important actor on the international arena. So he tries to expand his sphere of political influence in the world. And it depends on Western countries how much they allow Putin to expand his sphere of influence. The internal population, unfortunately, has almost no influence over him.
Indeed. Well, we certainly hope that there's a peaceful outcome. I know it's a very dynamic and very stressful time at this moment. Sergei, I want to thank you so much for joining us and giving us this update. As I say, let's hope that in the coming hours, days and weeks that peace continues to ensue. Thank you for joining us today on Anews.